Welcome to Spiritual Happy Hour. Woohoo! It's a party online.
You know, Marilyn, you are so much fun.
Yes, I am. I love Spiritual Happy Hour. We serve spirits, after all. And we get to listen to the Master Randy Luna play the most beautiful music, and we get to listen to words of wisdom from you or sometimes from me.
And a channeling from Adironda.
I know. What could get better than that?
The double digits.
Yes. But this is Spiritual Happy Hour,
okay.
which is loosely inspired by A Course in Miracles. So this week we have such inspiring information. That was a little redundant, I know. Such wonderful information to learn how to make a decision, right?
Absolutely. You know, because sometimes people get stuck.
They do?
I've been stuck. Have you been stuck?
I have been stuck, I must admit, every once in a while.
Every once in a while, you know. And Marilyn, we stand up here or sit here on the stools every Sunday, pretty much, so that we can tell a story, share an experience that we hope will reach at least one person.
And help them shift their lives much more easily into a life that they will love living.
Because we know it is possible.
It is possible.
Everything is possible.
Everything.
For me, it was you, Marilyn, and Adironda. You guys were my paradigm shift.
My little ego loves that.
You too, you 14, however many there are of you, you said things to me that I could not unknow. And that's why it is important to be radically open-minded and radically transparent, because your life is simply a series of decisions you've made. Would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree with that. Absolutely 155%.
So the more transparent you are, the easier it is to make decisions. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree with that 155%.
I learned this from Ray Dalio in his book called Principles, an awesome book about decision making of all things. Ray Dalio, if you don't know who he is, he's the founder of Bridgewater Associates, the fifth most important private company in the United States, according to Fortune magazine, and he's made more money for investors than any other hedge fund in history, according to Bloomberg. I mean, people like Bill Gates and Tony Robbins turned to Ray. And because of his success, not only in his business, but in his personal life, people asked him to write about his principles, which he bases on what he calls believability weighting. You can feel more confident about your decisions when you make them based upon 1, gathering credible information, 2, meditating, you hear this a lot on Spiritual Happy Hour, to clear your mind, and 3, responding based upon your beliefs about the decision rather than your emotions. Now, this may seem like direct contrast to what we teach and practice in spirituality about using our intuition to make decisions, but it's really not, because at the core of Ray's practice is meditation. It helps slow things down so you can act calm when things get chaotic and make decisions you won't regret. One of the things that Adironda has always taught is to gather information when making important decisions. And Ray says one of the most important things about making decisions is knowing when not to make your own decisions. This would be when you're making an emotional decision, and when to turn to believable parties, those who have repeatedly and successfully accomplished something and have great explanations for how they did it. In order to learn and grow, it's important to be radically open-minded and radically transparent. How many of you suffer from anxiety? You just cannot seem to turn off your brain. Well, that was me a decade and a half ago. I had terrible anxiety. I had money problems, marital problems, work problems, family and relationship problems. I was a mess on the inside. But I was like a duck floating around on the sea of humanity, looking cool and calm, yet underneath I was pedaling like crazy to stay afloat. My feet were on autopilot. I had made what felt like a lifetime of bad decisions, or at least that's what my brain wanted me to believe. I'd be up all hours of the night worrying. I was so afraid my next decision would be horrible before it even happened. It was like I was attacking me, only I was the only one that knew about it. People close to me could probably tell because I had this habit of picking nervously at my cuticles, or I would also chew on my lip. And my husband at the time would just grab my hand or imitate me chewing my lip. And this would just increase my anxiety because then I knew people knew. And what would they think? So I'd stuff back the anxiety. Truth is, I did not know how to deal with it. I thought often about ending my life. What was the point? It was so painful to live with this incessant voice in my head pointing out every single thing that I had done wrong in my life. Then magically, God gave me the audiobook, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I say God because I don't even remember how I got the book, but I'll never forget the moment that I heard Eckhart say something. He said, "If I cannot live with myself, there must be two of me, the I and the self that I cannot live with. Maybe," I thought, "only one of them is real." In that moment, I was gardening in my backyard, digging in the dirt. I can still feel the dirt under my nails and the smell of wet earth. Wow, I thought, of course, there are two of me. The I and the self that the I cannot live with. Then I realized, wow, if there are two of me and I'm aware of it, then I might actually be able to reason and calm and work with the self that I cannot live with. Can you relate to this? Maybe you feel like this now. Type it into the chat. I guarantee you are not alone. So I was doing my morning practice of A Course in Miracles, which by now you probably know it's a book that Marilyn and I both live our lives by, and it reminds us that we don't have to be anxious. In fact, what I've just shared with you covers 3 entire lessons of ACIM. Lesson number 26. My attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. In other words, that self was attacking the me that didn't know, that didn't even know what it didn't know. And lesson number 27, above all else, I want to see. Yep, that was me. I wanted to rise above the anxiety. And interesting, in that statement, above all else I want to see, the universe or God, whatever you want to call the bigger picture of energy, comes rushing in to help me see. Someone had given me The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, remember? I don't even know who it was or why, but it helped me to rise above all else to see. And it helped me realize in lesson number 28, above all else, I want to see things differently. I wanted a change that I didn't even know at the time was possible. All I knew was I couldn't go on living my life the way I had been living it, and something had to change. From that point on, knowledge, wisdom, enlightenment, like-minded people, they all began to appear in my life. And that's all it took to just ask, above all else, I want to see things differently. A Course in Miracles says a miracle is just a change in perspective. It's just seeing things in a different way, in a different light. After that, all kinds of miracles began to happen for me, and the anxiety began to slowly go away. It started to become manageable, and I began to grow and to transform. And while I was focused on knowledge, on learning how to manage, how to change, I ended up spending more time with people who made me happy and created more situations that led me to my own peace of mind. Because whenever something didn't feel good, and I would feel it in my body, remember, picking at my cuticles or chewing on my lip, I would recognize it and I'd ask myself, what is it about this situation that I need to know? Or, above all else, I want to see things differently. You can do this too right now. Just ask out loud. In fact, demand it. Above all else, I want to see things differently. And watch what begins to show up. Remember to be open-minded and not to immediately push away possibilities. Now, I may not have asked to see things differently, but I asked for my life to change, and this was the wisdom that came to me. And my life did change. My anxiety subsided. I began to enjoy waking up every day. I began to feel purpose. Eckhart Tolle also says, if you could observe the physiological changes that take place in your body when you're in a negative state, you would stop immediately. My disability and my dis-ease was all between my ears. And now I know if these physiological changes of chewing on my lip or picking at my cuticles appear, I stop. I ask myself, what's going on? Just acknowledging it helps it to subside. So during this paradigm shift, I finally admitted to myself that I was unhappy in my marriage. I was staying for the wrong reasons. I didn't know, should I stay and work on the marriage, or should I go and continue to focus the work on myself? I realized that it took two people wanting to grow the relationship, that both of us had to want things to grow. The more I grew, the worse the relationship got. At one point, Marilyn, seeing how miserable I was, said, "Why is it that you stay?" And I was so afraid to admit my fear of leaving that I wouldn't say it at first. I just told her, I don't know. The truth was I did know. I was afraid to be alone. And after a bit of time, I did share that with her out loud. And a miracle happened. When I said it out loud, the fear went away. Finally, I was transparent. Finally, I was honest. And soon thereafter, I did leave my husband. Now, don't get me wrong. I still love my first husband. In many ways, he has a heart of gold and means really well. I do know this. But our work together had come to an end, and eventually we both agreed, and we're much happier now. I can tell you this, it was definitely a block for me, because as soon as I left that relationship, everything began to flow. My money, my work, my relationships. I knew I had made the right decision, but there's more to it than that. I remember sharing this story on a stage in a group of about 300 people, and a woman came up to me afterwards and asked me how I knew when it was time to leave. And in that moment, I remembered something that Adironda had said to me early in my journey when I had asked about my marriage. They said, "You'll know when it's over. You'll be crystal clear. There won't be a decision to make." At the time, I didn't want anyone to know that I was unhappy in my marriage. Not my kids, not my friends. But as I was becoming more transparent and seeking my own truth, I began to take my cues from people that I could clearly see they were happy in their marriage. I was gathering credible information. Remember, step 1 of good decision making. And I remember Marilyn and I were traveling a lot, and we often stayed with friends. And we were staying with our friends Dita and Rich, a beautiful couple, successfully married for decades, so fun to be around. And Marilyn and I had awakened one morning in their guest room that we were sharing, and we could hear Dita and Rich in the other room laughing and talking. And we both just kind of sat there and listened to them and smiled. They were having pillow talk. You could just feel their love and enjoyment of one another for just talking and sharing together first thing in the morning. Such a simple thing. And I said to Marilyn, I want that. I literally announced it to God. Well, guess what? A few years later, that exact thing showed up in my life in a brand new relationship with Carl. After I had the courage to leave my first marriage. How did I know it was time to leave my marriage? Radical truth. I wasn't happy. Radical transparency. Leaving my husband was admitting out loud to the world, to my kids, to my friends and family, that my marriage was over. And Adironda was right. I had gathered the data. I had meditated. Remember step 2, meditate. I had meditated daily for years. And step 3, I was completely unemotional when I finally made the decision. You see, I knew it wasn't going to change as long as I stayed in it. I was growing, but the relationship was not. And that happens when you begin to grow. people fall away. Not everyone's a fan of growth. Your growth in this process can make others around you feel uncomfortable. And you have a decision to make: radical truth, radical transparency. If that person is on the periphery of your life, you can just redraw the lines and put them squarely on the outside. Love them as they are, but make a choice to not spend as much time with them. If they're close, as in my case, you get to find a way to be with it and to not be triggered. I mean, not allotting them any emotion. And the best case is if you can just drop into your heart and see them as a call for love. But I've been doing this work for years, and I'll be honest, I can't always do that. Sometimes it's all I can do to just remain neutral. There's a great trick for this I learned from Dr. Kelly Ann Petrucci, author of The Bone Broth Diet. Yes, I read all kinds of books. She calls it the gray rock method. It means becoming emotionally non-responsive like a gray rock, just bland, cold, and unmoved. It's how I learned to maintain control of my situation. Because remember, step 3 about decision making, responding based upon your beliefs about the decision rather than your emotions. As you grow, regardless of whether or not you choose to stay with someone like a spouse, A Course in Miracles says all relationships are assignments. Just because you leave doesn't mean it's over. There's always a lesson to be learned. And my relationship with my first husband is still an assignment. We have children together, and I still communicate with him. And he still triggers me, which means I still have things to learn from him. And sometimes I can drop into my heart and see him as love, and sometimes I can't. When you're working to transform, when you start feeling happy and confident because of the inner work that you're doing, not everyone will embrace your success. In fact, some people want that version of you that they're familiar with, the old you. Sometimes witnessing your transformation can even send someone you care about into a tailspin. I remember another person who's very close to me during this time actually said to me, "Stop being so happy." My immediate response, inside of course, was, "Are you kidding me? I've worked years to get to this point. How dare you ask me to stop?" So since I couldn't get there at that moment, I gray rocked it. Think of a gray rock, right? It's neutral, it has zero emotion, bland, cold, unresponsive. When someone wants to dig up your past, something unpleasant, and tell you that it's just going to happen again, gray rock. When someone wants to reject your idea of possibilities and tells you your dreams will never happen, gray rock. Some people will look at your transformation and they will only see change. They won't see growth. And what does A Course in Miracles have to say about this? Love them anyway. Gray rock allows you that moment in time to not be triggered because what's happening has nothing to do with you. It's actually a simultaneous form of meditation, of neutrality. It's their moment of calling for love. They don't feel loved. They're not in the same phase of growth that you may be experiencing, and that's okay. Remember, it's an assignment, and assignments teach you something. It's your assignment to not get triggered. Gray rock. Just don't respond if you can't do it with love, and sometimes you can't respond with love, but you can choose how you respond. Gray rock. ACIM says every relationship is an assignment. It's an opportunity to learn, to grow in spirituality. And lesson number 29, God is in everything I see. And lesson number 30, God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. That person who said to me, "Stop being so happy," gray rock. God is in that person. And God is in that place of my mind that wants me to learn to love that person that says, "Stop being so happy." Because that person that said, "Stop being so happy," and that moment that I realized it wasn't an attack on me, it was a call for them to feel loved. That was God shifting my paradigm. If this is news to you, you can't unknow this. Radical truth is knowing that you don't know what you don't know. And that's why it's so important to be radically open-minded. because your life is simply a series of decisions you've made. And the more radically transparent you are, the easier it is to choose decisions that you'll feel really good about. And you can make decisions out of love rather than out of fear. Because as we've heard here before, fear says I'll keep you safe, and love says you already are safe. I know Adironda loves this topic. Let's hear what they have to say about it. But first, sit back and relax for a beautiful moment with the Master Randy Luna.
So it is good day to you, huh? So good to see your light, your brightness, your divine presence. Good day to you, good day to you, good day to you, good day to each of you out there in virtual reality. So what decision are you making today? Stay, go, up, down, cheese, no cheese. Understand that those decisions that you are making, as the wonderful Joy said, when you make them based upon emotion, that, dearest beings of light, is your ego. When you do that from an egoic standpoint, that is where the energy goes. We've had many people, many hundreds and hundreds of people ask questions of us over the year when we were doing private session. They would say, should I stay with my husband? Should I stay with my wife? Should I stay with my job? Should I leave my job? What should I do? Well, dearest, the very fact that you are asking the question says that there's a problem. Otherwise, you would never be asking the question. So you've got to look into yourself and say, what is the problem? And every single time you point your finger at someone else, realize you have 3 fingers pointing back at you and one maybe pointing at your neighbor somewhere. You understand what we're saying, though, yes? Because you see, when you are blaming, now, yes, some things do happen. Just sometimes things happen. However, if they happen twice, that is a pattern. If you consistently get into relationships that no longer really serve your highest good, ask yourself what you are doing. Just like the vessel Marilyn asked the Joy, well, if you're so unhappy, why do you stay? We were there. We remember the moment that she said, I'm afraid to be alone. And that thought blew everything out of the water because she admitted it out loud. So understand, dearest beings of light, when you have a decision to make, when your emotions are involved, not evolved, involved, that is your ego communicating directly with you. Well, I'm leaving because she did this and they did that and this happened and the boss did that and blah, blah, blah. That is your ego keeping everything all stirred up. And yet, when you get very still, when you get very quiet and gray rocket, Is that right? Gray rocket? We love gray rocks. But when you gray rocket and you understand, you remember what that meant, and we just want to make sure you know what that meant, is to be neutral. To not be emotional in your decision making, but to be neutral. That is when you can truly make the decision. Until you can be neutral, you will always come from that place of ego. You will run screaming out into the 10 o'clock in the morning or run screaming out into the night and say, oh, but this is so horrible. Pack up your box of things at the work and run out the door. Instead of just say, this doesn't really work for me anymore. I'm done. And to know that whenever you let something go that no longer serves your highest good, take a deep breath. If you have made that decision without even thinking about it, without even saying, should I not, should I not, blah, 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 and just said, this is not working for me. Bye-bye. When you are in that gray rock or neutral position, that is spirit working through you and to you. For whenever you are in a situation that no longer serves your highest good, once you learn what it is that is yours to learn from that decision, from that experience, from that lifetime, you no longer have to do that any longer. You can indeed be present enough to say, I bring I back to me. Because there are not really two of you, unless you want there to be two of you. We know we love Eckhart Tolle, and he says that. However, what he's really meaning is to bring the two together into the oneness of you. Now, we are going into a time where duality is falling by the wayside. The oneness is the clue that you are making your decision practice from your own truth, from your own wisdom, not being influenced by what your friends say. You know, how many times do you go to your friends and say, well, what do you think? What should I do? What do you think? They cannot speak for you. Not at all. They cannot fix your life. Only you can fix your life, and chances are your life is not even really broken, because everything is an assignment. Everything is put before you so you can learn to make different choices. As the Joy said, and A Course in Miracles, I choose to see things differently, and God is in everything I see. So, dearest beings of light, if you look at your life and see that God or Source and you are in every single decision, every single process, imagine what your world would be like. Well, at first it will be topsy-turvy and you won't know what to do, because it is contrary to what you're constantly working on, is repeating those old patterns. Do you really want to do that? The vessel Marilyn and the Joy come to you each week or whatever, and they help just by sharing you a glimpse into their life. And you get to look at the glimpse into your life to see how you can gray rock decisions that you are making. How you can see all the possibilities and do your research, do your homework, as we say. Don't say, oh, I think I'm supposed to move to Texarkana, Arkansas, or whatever it is, without going to Texarkana and saying, but let me see if I really like that. You see, you can't make decisions without doing your homework. So do your homework, gather data. Do your homework, meditate on it, see what it feels like. And then when you're ready, the decision will be made easily. No stress, no pain, no drama. It just is. Oh, dearest, we love you so much. We wish to help you love you more as well, because we see you. We know you. We feel you. We are you. Decision making, simple. You've got it. Namaste.